escorted to safety, pupils are reunited with their parents. There they tell reporters about the moment they came face to face with the gunmen.
Everyone around me got shot, and I begged him for 10 minutes not to shoot me. And he just put the gun in my face and started laughing, saying that it was all because people were mean to him last year.
Did the gunmen target specific students? 2:38 p.m. In the library, Patrick Ireland regains consciousness after being shot twice in the head 3 hours earlier.
I didn't know if they were still in the library or still in the school, or if there were more of them coming, but I knew I had to get out.
Patrick tries to stand up, but he can't.
My whole right side of my body was completely paralyzed. So I ended up rolling over onto my back and pushing myself with my good leg, my left leg, on the floor, weaving through tables and chairs, and ultimately getting over to the window.
A SWAT team on the ground sees Patrick and rushes in to help. Still bleeding profusely, Patrick plunges headfirst out of a second-story library window and into the arms of police. 2:42 p.m. After securing most of the entire school, police finally reach the science room where students are waiting with teacher Dave Sanders, shot 3 hours earlier. SWAT officer Dan Delmonico says that finding the classroom wasn't easy.
We had no maps, we had no direction of the place, and as we started moving, we had nobody telling us, okay, the science room, if you're here, go there.
While SWAT officers wait for paramedics to be escorted into the building along a secured path, Dave Sanders dies from his wounds. 3:22 p.m. Almost an hour later, police finally reach the library, where they make the most horrifying discovery of all. Officer Tom McKibben is among the first to arrive.
You see a lot of gruesome deaths, but never, you know, in that magnitude. You'd see kids laying face down, some of them on top of each other, next to each other.
Then they find the bodies of Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold. There is no doubt they are the gunmen. Fully armed and surrounded by guns and explosives, they died from self-inflicted gunshot wounds. Did they intend to commit suicide all along? The investigation and the answers to our questions are next, when the final report continues. April the 20th, 1999. The rampage of Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold at Columbine High School is over. Students are in shock.
I was under a table and people were getting shot all around me.
They got automatic weapons, sawed-off shotguns, and pipe bombs.
The dead include 12 students, 4 females and 8 males, 1 teacher and the 2 gunmen. Throughout the school, police find pipe bombs and shell casings, evidence left behind at one of the worst school shootings in American history. The level of violence leaves police and school officials wondering, did the teachers at Columbine notice any warning signs? That night, at Eric and Dylan's homes, police discover a wealth of evidence, including ammunition, metal pipes, fuses, violent essays, and journals. They also seize a series of home videos made by Eric and Dylan in the months before the massacre.
No, no, no.
Yo, hey, what's going on, dude? This is Dylan.
Investigators question the parents and consider whether they should be held accountable for their actions. What did their parents know? In the days following the shootings, flowers are placed all around the school. For the grief-stricken community, the most troubling question remains, why did Eric and Dylan go on their murderous rampage? Police begin their investigation by scrutinizing the evidence seized from Eric and Dylan's homes. The items provide the answers to many of the questions this program has asked, but the most intriguing is, who were the gunmen? Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold seem to be normal, if occasionally troubled, teenagers. Journalist Dave Cullen investigated the shooting and believes reports that painted Eric and Dylan as misfits are incorrect.
It's a complete myth that they were outcasts. They had a huge group of friends. They went to Friday night rock and roll. Dylan went to the prom. Eric had lots of dates.
Eric and Dylan both worked at this local pizzeria and played video games together. And according to Columbine High School head Frank DeAngelis, Eric and Dylan did well in school.
They were very adept at using the computers. They were in a video production class. Eric was in some of our upper-level classes. They were good students.
After the shootings, news reports that claimed Eric and Dylan were outcasts also said they were taking revenge against school bullies and were members of a so-called trench coat mafia. While there had been a group of students at Columbine High who called themselves the Trench Coat Mafia, Eric and Dylan were not members. Although in this video, the pair do portray themselves as assassins in black trench coats.
Do not even screw with that little kid! If you do, I'll rip off your goddamn head!
This video, made for a class project, is based on an essay by Eric entitled Trenchcoat Mafia Hitmen for Hire.
I don't care what you say. If you ever touch him again, I will frickin' kill you.
FBI Special Agent Dwayne Fusilier says Eric and Dylan wore trench coats during the attack out of necessity.
The only reason they had these long coats on was so that both of them could carry a shotgun on a sling and a 9mm carbine on a sling without being seen.
Of the two, Dylan Klebold, who had an explosive temper, seemed the most likely to get into trouble.
When Dylan got mad, you would hear about it. He would just erupt. He just went ballistic.
Dylan was known to swear at teachers and fight with his boss at the pizzeria. One of Dylan's oldest friends was Brooks Brown. Brooks' parents, Randy and Judy Brown, say Dylan spent a lot of time at their home when the boys were younger.
Dylan was the shyest child I'd ever met. When he would come over here, every time he'd have to warm up and kind of loosen up for a few minutes, you know, and then you could get him to open up.
Unlike Dylan, Eric was outgoing and seemingly confident. This video shows Eric flirting with a classmate in the school cafeteria. Eric was known for his calm and deferential behavior.
Eric was all about minimizing the damage. You know, yes sir, no sir, you know, suck up all he needed to do, say all the right things to get out of there.
Eric and Dylan met in junior school and eventually became best friends. In 1998, they had a run-in with the law. On January the 30th, they broke into a locked van and stole some electronics. They were arrested and charged with criminal trespassing and theft. Both boys pleaded guilty. A judge ordered them to take part in a youth diversion program, probation for first-time non-violent offenders. The program's counselors discovered that Eric had difficulty controlling his temper and ordered him to take anger management classes. The classes appeared to help. But in March, Randy and Judy Brown discovered that Eric had his own website, which contained a death threat against their son, Brooks. On his site, Eric wrote, "All I want to do is kill as many of you as I can, especially a few people like Brooks Brown." Eric also bragged that he and Dylan had been building and detonating pipe bombs. The Browns filed a report with the local sheriff's department. 2 weeks later, they followed it up with a meeting with a detective. According to the Browns, he assured them that there was enough information to investigate Eric for his bomb-making activities. It wasn't until after the Columbine tragedy that the Browns discovered that police never pursued their investigation. But investigators did draft an affidavit, the first step in obtaining a search warrant. The draft affidavit showed that they suspected a connection between Eric and an unsolved pipe bomb case. It read, on February the 15th, 1998, there was a report of a pipe bomb. The size is consistent with the devices labeled by Harris.
That affidavit made it clear that the characteristics of that pipe bomb were identical to the ones he had written about on his webpage.
Reporter Kevin Vaughan believes that had police pursued the investigation and searched the Harris home, they might have found pipe bombs and early evidence of the plot.
You have to ask yourself whether they would have found things that would have led them to have stopped Columbine from happening.
But a search warrant was never obtained and the case was eventually closed. In 2004, the Colorado Attorney General's office examined the Browns case and found that police believed they didn't have probable cause to pursue the search warrant. The Jefferson County Sheriff's Department declined requests for an interview with the final report. April the 26th, 1998. Not long after the Browns' meeting with police, Eric outlined in his journal initial plans for an attack on a high school, a full year before the assault on Columbine. Over the next 12 months, Eric and Dylan began gathering supplies. What was their plan? To blow up the cafeteria and shoot people as they fled.
The first thing to realize about Columbine, it was not intended just as a school shooting. I mean, it was intended as a bombing.
Eric wrote, "We will be in all black, dusters, black army pants. It'll be like the LA riots, the Oklahoma bombing, World War II, Vietnam, all mixed together."
They wanted to harm as many people as they could. I think their plans were very grandiose, and they were going to take it as far as they could take it.
On the day of the attack, the pair would plant bombs in the cafeteria. They'd wait by their cars for the bombs to detonate, then shoot at students and teachers as they tried to escape the flames. Did they intend to commit suicide all along? Yes, based on their journal entries.
They did not expect to come out of that alive. Their plan all along was to die in the incident, either from police bullets or from by their own hand.
They had imagined this, huge firefight with the cops, this war.
Satisfied with their plan, Eric and Dylan set a tentative date and turned their thoughts to weapons. In his journal, Eric wrote, "It will be very tricky getting all of our supplies, explosives, weaponry, ammo, and then hiding it all." 5 months before the assault, Eric and Dylan attempted to purchase some weapons at a gun show in Denver, but were unable to due to their age. A frustrated Eric wrote in his journal, "I have enough explosives to kill about 100 people. That just isn't enough. Guns. I need guns." On the day of the killings, the two brandished sawn-off shotguns, a rifle and a semi-automatic handgun. How were teenagers able to get weapons like these? Older friends, unaware of the plot, provided them to Eric and Dylan. The day after their unsuccessful attempt to buy weapons, Eric and Dylan tried again. This time, they recruited an unwitting accomplice from school, someone old enough to legally buy guns. They returned to the same gun show, where their 18-year-old friend purchased the shotguns. In his